Hi, my name is Alex, and today I'm going to be telling you how to do a tune-up on an old Chevy with an inline 6. To do this job, you'll need a 3/8 drive ratchet, a 1/4 inch drive ratchet, a 5/8 socket, a 3/8 extension, a 1/4 inch socket and a 1/4 inch drive extension, a Phillips screwdriver, and a flathead screwdriver. And of course, you'll need the assorted parts to do the tune-up, which would be spark plug wires, a distributor cap, and rotor. Now, me personally, I'm not going to use this little distributor cap button because the last one I did, this broke, so I'm going to use the one that's in the old distributor cap. Defective parts, they come and they go. First, you'll want to take all the spark plug wires off. Doesn't matter which order you take it off from, just as long as you take them off. Some people like to take them off in the specific order which they came off because it's easier for them to remember. But if you're seasoned in these, or if you look up the firing order, if I remember correctly, one starts right here. So you start here, and then you go around, and you match the wires up to the firing order. Here's all your spark plug wires. Do with those, dispose of those as you please. Me personally, I live out in the middle of nowhere, so I'm going to throw them in the back of the truck. Next, you get out your ratchet with your 5/8 socket and potentially an extension. And then you take out your spark plugs. And you're not supposed to drop them, but I'm not using a spark plug socket because spark plug sockets sometimes make the job harder. And it makes it easier once it starts getting loose to kind of use the socket and extension as a screwdriver to pull out your spark plugs. Makes the job go a lot quicker. And these spark plugs look older than the hills, but it doesn't look like it's been firing funny or anything. That's one thing that's nice to do, kind of a little self-inspection as you pull the spark plugs out. See if your vehicle's running funny or if it's doing just fine. This thing hasn't had a tune-up in at least 20 years, so I'd say they're looking pretty good. This one looks about the same. Oh, and a little side note, it's good if you're short like me to just have your own little homemade step stool. That looks good as well. And if you're working on a vehicle that's actually nice, it's not good to just slap the firewall like I do.
You'll probably lean on the fender like that without a
without a cover. Like a felt cover that is scratch proof. Looks about the same. I'd say this pickup runs pretty solid, pretty good. No particular really bad issues. This one looks a little bit darker than the rest, but it's really nothing to be concerned about overall. It looks pretty good. Now I go get my new spark plugs and put them in. If you want to get really technical, there are these things called heat ratings. So you can't put just any spark plug in a vehicle, because if it's too hot, it'll burn a hole in your piston, and you don't want that. Here's our brand new spark plug. And back in the day, you would have had to gap them. But in this day and age, they come pre-gapped, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you just put them in your socket and put them back in the order you took them out, or however you want. It doesn't really matter. as long as they get back in and tightened. And while I'm sure there is a torque spec, you don't need to torque them unless it's like a Triton 5.4, because these old engines, they're made of iron. They don't just break. So as long as you have them good and snug, they're good. Like that. And if it's an old and grimy engine like this one, make sure you don't get any grease in the spark plug holes. It might just burn them off, but make sure it's not excessive. And it's really nice to, you don't need a flex head 3/8, but it is really nice to have one because it makes the job more convenient to do, because you can angle the body of it. And just for reference for those watching, your coil is not supposed to be this loose, but it still functions. So as much as it matters, it's not a huge deal, but it still should not be rattling around like this. So now you want to take your flathead screwdriver, you want to push in these screws here and turn them out so that the latches disengage. And another thing you want to do is make sure they're going the correct direction, because usually there are little grooves on the bottom so that you can't go any farther to make sure it's latched. And of course, you'll also want to unplug everything from the coil in the order of which it came off. It's easier to just use your fingers. Now you don't have power to the distributor. So if anyone wants to play a prank on you and your truck doesn't run one time when you come out to school, don't start, look under here. They probably just unplugged your distributor. Now after you have all those latches undone, you take your distributor cap off, inspect it, see how it looks like things are burning. You can definitely tell this cap's been on there for a while. Things are a little bit corroded, looks like they've gotten a little worn, but it's nothing out of the ordinary. And now that you have your distributor cap off, you take your 1/4-inch drive ratchet, your 1/4-inch extension, and your 1/4-inch socket, and take your coil off, and transfer it over to your new distributor cap.
And pick up the mess when you're done.
Yeah.
Good housekeeping.
Mm-hmm. This is just the cap for your coil, and this is actually your coil here. Make sure everything is unplugged from your coil before you take it out. Otherwise, you might damage some stuff. And then you want to take your 1/4-inch stuff again and take your coil out from the cap. This is definitely an older coil. It has a little bit of surface rust here and there on it, but it still functions, so that's all that matters. And that's your coil. And I mentioned this earlier in the stuff you'll need to do this. This is the stuff that I'm going to transfer to the new coil, or the new distributor cap, because for whatever reason, the last distributor cap I got, these were defective and they snapped and the truck didn't run anymore. And dispose of these as you please.
dispose of them in the jump there, the pile. Gotta unload it and haul to the dump.
And as far as this goes, it's just as simple as setting it right back in. Then you put your coil back in your new distributor cap. Make sure all these go in nice and good. All these plug-ins. They technically female end. Now you bolt it back in. And it'll feel like it's going a little hard, but it's actually not. You're just making the threads for it in the cap. And you want to make sure you go into it in a diagonal pattern so that you don't put it in uneven. The same goes for a lot of things when you're doing torque specs. And now I'll put the coil cover back on this. And
I need to get my shadow in there.
right. Let me put our bolts back in. Screw those back in. And now your distributor cap is put all back together. The old rotor is old. You're still going to need to use your 1/4" drive socket. But when we put the new rotor on, your newer models, they come with Phillips screws. And now we unbolt the old rotor. It really doesn't take much effort at all. Then you just unscrew it with your extension and socket like a screwdriver, like you did with the spark plug wires, or the spark plugs. Now you take it out. Do with it as you please, like everything else. Throw it in the back of your truck, throw it in the trash, do whatever you want. Now you grab your new rotor and your Phillips screwdriver and put it back in. And this here, this is your mechanical advance. Basically, that's what provides adequate power under acceleration when you're driving an old vehicle. And these little springs right here, if you replace those, that's called doing a recurve. And always remember which way you took it off. Because if you put it on this way, it'll be 180 degrees out and your truck won't run. And if it does, it'll run like complete garbage. Make sure to hold it nice and straight. And make sure it goes in evenly. Get it a little snug, and then you're good. And this here, sometimes you'll need to replace these. This is another type of issue. Like, say you're just going down the road and your truck just shuts off. This is called an ignition module. If that happens, either your coil or your ignition module went bad. And so you put the distributor cap back on and the way you found it. Usually there will be grooves indicating which way it came off. And then sometimes, like with the other cap, you gotta pull these screws out and put them in the way you took the old one off. That one's nice and stiff.
You even got your nice fancy.
A nice Southeast Tech shirt. Springs are a bit stiff. And then you make sure it doesn't move around. It's down in place. And you take your flathead screwdriver again, and you push her down. Sometimes you got to force it a little bit because your springs get bound up after sitting for a while. If you're like me and you procrastinate to do stuff. And then, of course, you turn the latches back so that they latch good and shut. And now your distributor cap's on. And it's not wobbly. The coil isn't. Now you get your spark plug wires.
This is where you became smarter than the average, because you can do it by a firing order, not by one by one by one like a lot of people.
Yeah. And then, of course, you put your spark plug wires on in order of length.
But usually there's a tag on the manifold somewhere.
Yeah, usually on the intake manifold, there is a tag that tells you the firing order. All right, I suppose. I got it recording. All right, so you'll want to go in order of the spark plugs, of course. You'll want to start with 1. And on GM, your distributor order goes clockwise. And if you don't know what direction your distributor firing order goes, you take your distributor cap off and you turn the motor over, have somebody watching what way the rotor's spinning, and then that's what direction your firing goes. So now we'll want to start with this one right here, and then you angle her over and go over here. And you want to hear a little click. Make sure it's going in. Now, I remember when I ordered these, I wasn't being too picky. I ordered spark plugs for a Ford engine, actually. A 300 inline 6. Because, except for Dodge, basically all old inline 6s are built just about the same. Dodge is special. They have a slant 6. 15, 36, 24. So 1, this one goes back to 5. So that's going to be a longer one. We have a long one. Let's see. And sometimes you'll have to route your stuff under things so that it's easier access. There's 5.
Sun's kind of in the way over here.
Click.
Harder to see the camera.
And now you got it on your second position on the distributor cap. And now we go to 3, which is a lot closer. This would be from 3 to 3 right here. Actually, no, we want one a little longer. This is what happens when you order stuff for a different brand, because you know it'll work anyway. You have to do a little bit of figuring out. Hear that little click? That's how you know it's in. Now, we go to 6, which is a really long one, and I'm honestly a little worried we might not have one that fits, so we might have to use an old spark plug wire, which is no big deal. It's just nice to have the right ones. Yep, nope, that's not gonna fit. This one or this one right here. And for this, you'll want to use a screwdriver to open it up. Yeah. Put it up this way. And now it's open. And now you have access to your plug wires. And usually it's marked which side is spark plug and which side's coil on the new ones. But these old ones, they didn't really care that much. After some technical difficulties, we have a spark plug wire that should be the right length.
If we didn't live so far away from town, maybe we'd go get the right spark plug wires.
Yeah, we would be getting the correct parts right now, but we live almost an hour away from town. So yeah, used stuff. It's unfortunate, but that's life sometimes. Make sure that's on there nice and good. Okay, so that was 1536. So now 24. So this should go to 2. And usually you want to make sure that clicks on there. But evidently we have more defective parts. There we go. Nice little click there. There. Little clip. And if you start it and it's missing for some reason, you don't have a spark plug wire all the way on. Click. I just look at last one there. This would be 4. You might have to grab a spare one again. Is this one? Oh, there's our click, I think. And then, after everything's said and done, you want to plug all your stuff back in, like your power and your grounds. These plug-ins back here. We'll plug those back in. Snap, snap. And bam. And also, if you got an aftermarket tachometer wire, you're probably going to want to put a new end on it because it probably came right off when you tried taking it off. Let's see if it starts. It was unclear where number 1 went. Wherever you put number 1 kind of determines how it's going to run.
On the cap.
Yeah. Number 1's actually right here. But if you look it up online and look at images, people will say it's right here. So if you look it up, you might have it wrong. So it's actually 15, 36, 24. And you go with that, it goes in order. Like this is number 1 cylinder, and from there back, it's number matched.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And so now we start it and enjoy it.
Runs good. Need to go to get a couple of the new spark plug wires from the store tomorrow when you go to school. So it's complete, done right.
And then it'll be good to go. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and I hope you learned a lot. That was doing a tune-up on an old Chevy truck with an inline 6. And the same principles apply with doing a tune-up on basically any old car, especially an old GM car. So really, after watching this, you should be able to do a tune-up on any old vehicle you want. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.